Wow, Kansas does it again. Another all-time finish. You had a last lap, last corner pass. You had a car flipping in turns 3 and 4 at Kansas coming off the wall. I mean, this race really had it all. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Talking NASCAR. I'm your host, Andrew. We have so much to talk about today. We had the Hollywood Casino 400 from Kansas Motor Speedway in the heart of America. Crazy last lap finishes, like I already talked about. So many storylines that we have to cover that I may not even get to all of them, and I may not even remember all of them because there was just so much that I have to talk about. So many different storylines, like I just mentioned. But let's go ahead and just get straight into it. Let's start with the pre-race storylines that were coming into this race that kind of happened throughout this race. So before the race even began, before practice and qualifying got underway, NASCAR penalized the 71 car of Michael McDowell, the 88 car of Shane Van Gisbergen, and the 51 of Cody Ware. Specifically for McDowell and Shane Van Gisbergen, they lost their crew chief, Steven Duran and Travis Peterson, and as well, they had to serve a pass-through penalty on lap 1, which sent them a lap down early in the race, which you never want to do at Kansas. You never want to be a lap down early at Kansas. For Cody Ware, he lost his car chief and lost pit stall selection, so it wasn't as steep as a penalty for Cody Ware in that 51 team. But for Shane Van Gisbergen and Michael McDowell, that was a big hit already to their day at a track where it's very tough. It's a very difficult track. It's a very difficult track to run. It's one of the most competitive tracks on the NASCAR schedule. And as for Shane Van Gisbergen, we would get to see how that storyline would affect him and what he would do with that pass-through penalty, as we'll get to see later on in the finishing results. Because Shane Van Gisbergen ended up having a pretty solid day, I will say. As for other pre-race storylines, Team Penske in practice did not look good. Ryan Blaney actually blew a tire in practice, had to go to a backup car, and was not very quick all day. Ended up finishing pretty mediocre, I would say, after winning last weekend at New Hampshire. So definitely a very underwhelming weekend. Penske overall just didn't look very quick. Logano struggled in practice. Cindric had some issues in practice, ended up having to miss out on their second practice run. And all three Penske cars finished outside the top 20. I'll just go ahead and spoil that for you guys. So we got a lot to get to, but those are your pre-race storylines, I will say. As Stage 1 got underway with Chase Briscoe leading the way to the green flag, SVG and Michael McDowell would make their pass-through penalties on lap 1. And by lap 20, Denny Hamlin had run down and passed Chase Briscoe for the lead. And Briscoe actually fell down to third as Kyle Larson was able to work his way up to second place as well. Christopher Bell, after the whole pit cycle, ended up passing Chase Briscoe for third. And then on lap 56, just a couple laps later, we would get our first caution of the race for Cody Ware, who blew a right front tire in the middle of 3 and 4, crashing from 36th. And on this pit stop cycle after this caution, Tyler Reddick, actually, who came in, I believe, inside the top 10, ended up falling outside the top 20, ended up coming back down pit road for scuff qualifying tires, and was probably not the right move for that 45 team, as Reddick could just not move forward at all. And on the following restart, Denny Hamlin would lead the way, and he would end up holding on for the Stage 1 victory, getting those 10 stage points. Followed by Kyle Larson in the 5 car, Chase Elliott in the 9 car, Christopher Bell, Hamlin's teammate, in 4th, Ross Chastain in 5th, who really needed some stage points, Chase Briscoe in 6th. Joey Logano was actually able to move his way forward up to 7th place to get some stage points. Chris Buescher as well got 8th, Zane Smith in 9th, and Carson Hocevar rounded out the top 10 in Stage 1. So that was a pretty orderly Stage 1, in my opinion, I would say, and I think everyone would agree with that. Bubba Wallace as well in Stage 1, and Ryan Blaney, William Byron, some notable playoff drivers that finished outside the top 10. Same with Austin Cindric and Tyler Reddick, who fell outside the top 20, like I mentioned, down to 24th. So really rough for those guys not being able to get some stage points, as unlike Logano, Blaney, and Cindric could not get stage points like Logano, their Penske teammate. On the next pit stop cycle, though, Christopher Bell would be able to take the lead and come off first on pit road after taking 2 tires, and was able to restart and get clear for the lead off turn 2. Only a lap later, though, we would get another caution to open up Stage 2, as John Hunter Nemechek and Ryan Preece would both spin down the front straightaway after they were battling for 16th place. It looked like Ryan Preece just kind of washed up into John Hunter Nemechek. Nemechek really couldn't do anything about it. Couldn't really avoid the contact very well. Nemechek was running up high. Preece kind of washed up the track on his inside. So it was a very tough situation, and that would bring everyone back, or that would bring a couple guys down pit road. We'd have another restart. Bell was able to get clear for the lead on the inside of Kyle Larson, I should say. And for a little while thereafter, Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson were both battling for second, while Denny Hamlin was also kind of creeping his way back up towards the front, kind of getting into that battle with Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, excuse me. And as those laps went on, early on in that run, Bubba Wallace, who really struggled in that first run in stage one, had kind of found something. He made an adjustment on pit road. That whole team did. Charles Denike made the right adjustment and ended up moving his way past Kyle Larson and Ross Chastain for fourth and fifth. Ended up moving up into third, I believe. Then we would get our next cycle of green flag pit stops, and Bubba Wallace chose to run it a little bit long, was able to stay out a little bit and kind of use those fresher tires to gain an advantage on Denny Hamlin, but Hamlin ended up passing him back in turns 3 and 4 after Wallace was back out on track and Hamlin came back out on pit road. So Hamlin was able to get the lead and was able to hold on to it and would end up winning stage 2, followed by Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, and Alex Bowman ended up getting the final stage point with Chris Buescher and AJ Allmendinger in 11th and 12th. And Tyler Reddick at this point had moved up into 14th place. And here's where we get into stage 3, where the real kind of good racing got underway, the longest run of the day. On the restart, Chase Elliott would be able to clear Denny Hamlin on the outside lane. Elliott would hold on to that lead for a little bit, but Hamlin was kind of keeping him close, keeping him in his sights, keeping it under a second. On lap 196, Elliott was passed by Denny Hamlin for the lead and ended up getting passed for second by Christopher Bell only a couple laps later. And then 11 laps later, we would get another caution for J.J. Yeley, who spun down the front stretch after getting kind of run over by Carson Hocevar coming off turn 4. Looked like Hocevar just kind of caught up to J.J. Yeley really, really quick. Also got loose in the wake of that 44 car, ended up making contact with that 44 car of Yaley, sent Yaley into the outside wall, and then sent him back down across the track. I know I just used the word sent a lot, but that's really what happened there, because Yaley couldn't really do a lot to control the car, and that would end up bringing out the third caution for cause of the day. And after the next pit stop cycle under yellow, Denny Hamlin actually reported to his crew that he was having power steering issues, and don't forget those, because those would come up later in the race. And Hamlin, to his credit, was able to kind of hold on for a little bit, able to hold on to the lead under that long green flag run. But as we had a couple more cautions later in the race, sorry, spoiler alerts, Hamlin and that lack of power steering would end up showing itself later in the race. Next, on the restart, we get our next really kind of big wreck of the day, where we'd have on the restart a big stack up in front of the 4 of Noah Gragson, ends up getting turned and into mixed contact with Joey Logano, ends up collecting Ross Chastain, who ends up with minimal damage as well. Austin Cindric had a really good day kind of going, was able to work his way forward a little bit more, ends up getting collected. Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch kind of had a rough go of it, got caught up in it as well. Ryan Blaney got caught up in it, but also had minimal damage. AJ Allmendinger, Joey Logano, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ty Gibbs, Hocevar also got caught up in it. And on that incident, it just looked like there was a stack up. Noah Gragson went to the middle, ended up making contact, ended up getting into the side of Logano, getting turned, spun a couple guys around, spun Logano out, Cindric. Just a really tough ordeal. And that's really what happens on those stack up crashes. There's just nowhere to go, and it's no one's fault, really. It's just everyone kind of jockeying for position, nowhere to go, and that's how the wrecks happen. That's kind of how that's just kind of how stack up crashes happen on these ovals in NASCAR. It's just nowhere to go, and it's wrong place, wrong time all the time in these restart crashes. So that was a big crash. Took out a lot of guys like AJ Allmendinger, who was kind of on a good run, I would say. He had been up to 12th in that stage. Ryan Blaney ended up getting some damage that would kind of take him out of contention. Cindric, in his playoff hopes, did not need that, and receiving that damage really kind of took him out of contention. Logano also got involved in that crash. That kind of set him back from the rest of the field. Noah Gragson was also having a really good day. He was up inside the top 15. Back-to-back good days for that number 4 car, but unfortunately, it came to an end today here at Kansas. Besides that, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. also was able to kind of work his way forward a little bit, was running up inside the top 10 at some point today, but could not really get it done here. Got involved in that crash. And Kyle Busch as well. This kind of crash would kind of cause some more issues for Kyle Busch later in the race. So this crash had a pretty big impact on the rest of the race. But on the next restart, Denny Hamlin would lead from the inside with Bell on the outside. They would remain 3 wide as Chase Briscoe made it 3 wide, ended up powering to the outside, ended up falling back to be 3 wide with Bubba Wallace and Chase Elliott. And Tyler Reddick used a little bit of pit strategy to get up inside the top 10. I believe took a little bit less fuel, or maybe had a little bit tire strategy, because he was running 14th and actually was working his way forward, but used a little bit of pit strategy, just a tiny bit, to move his way forward up inside the top 10, end up moving up to 5th place while Chase Elliott got shuffled back into 6th place. Hamlin would get clear for the lead, though, just a 1 lap later. Then a couple more laps later, on lap 227, Alex Bowman would get put in the wall by Shane Van Gisbergen off of turn 2, and SVG had been kind of getting run hard by William Byron, Bowman's teammate, and Byron was not having a good day, not doing really well. Ill-handling car kind of got him loose, sent him up into SVG, used him up a little bit, and SVG, very inexperienced road course racer, ended up, did I just say inexperienced road course racer? Inexperienced oval racer, I should say, and he was running up inside the top 15, and it would be a good day overall for SVG, but still very inexperienced. I don't know how you'd handle that situation in that experience, like just where you're at as an oval driver. SVG ends up putting Alex Bowman in the wall. Bowman has some pretty big damage to the right side of that car. Bowman's teammate of Larson would also hit the wall a couple laps later from 7th, but he would end up continuing. And then on lap 254, we get another caution, this time for debris off of Kyle Busch's car after he made contact in turn 2 with the outside wall. And my thinking was that after that crash he got involved with, had some damage, probably not very handling very well, running the wall kind of just to maybe protect the car. If he maybe did have like an issue on the bottom, it would soften the blow maybe a little bit. But Kyle Busch running the top lane ended up getting in the outside wall, ended up having the right rear tire carcass come off that car and just kind of sitting in the middle of the racetrack. That would bring out a caution for debris. And again, Hamlin was also kind of reporting a little bit before this happened that even though he did have a second lead over Christopher Bell, he was still having really big issues with that power steering of that car. And that would be very crucial when he'd have to come into pit stops, because even though he'd be up front and he wouldn't really have to drive around anybody because he would be coming down pit road first, it'd be very, very tough for Hamlin with that ill-handling car and just not steering very well. That will have a big impact later in this race. On the next cycle of on the yellow, we'd have another set of pit stops with Christopher Bell getting out in front of Bubba Wallace and Chase Briscoe. Denny Hamlin fell down to 6th due to a jack issue. Everything was going well. They executed everything except that jack issue. And Denny Hamlin had a new crew member, some substitute crew members from that suspension and that penalty from Bristol. They obviously suspended that suspension from last week to this week and the Charlotte Roval. So that's where it reared its ugly head with the new jack, man. They had done everything well before that. They were executing on everything. They were beating the bare minimum of the pit stops. But here in that pit stop, Hamlin and that new jack, man, really could not do it, did not execute very effectively. So Hamlin ended up falling down to 6th, and Chase Elliott took 4 tires. He'd be the first one on 4 tires in 7th. Now remember that as well. That's a very crucial detail. On the next restart, Bell would lead the way with Bubba Wallace on the outside. Chase Elliott moved up to 5th on that restart, already 2 tires, or those 4 tires already making a difference. Then Carson Hocevar on lap 260 would end up spinning down the back straightaway from 13th. Really tough result for Hocevar, because he was having some good speed, and I considered putting him in my power rankings for this week. Spoiler alerts for my power rankings tomorrow. Make sure you stay tuned for power rankings tomorrow, but it was very tough. Hocevar kind of brushed the wall and spun down the backstretch, and they kept the track green. NASCAR kept the green flag out for another lap, and on lap 261, Hocevar wasn't moving, even though he had 4 flat tires, just wasn't moving at all. They kept it green until they saw, okay, he's not moving, he's on the backstretch. They're coming back to the backstretch. We better put the caution out, and Bubba Wallace ended up being declared the winner, even though Bell and Hocevar were battling for it. And I think if the caution came out sooner, Bell would probably have the lead. So this was a very interesting point in the race. This was another very interesting one, another wrinkle in it, because I wonder what would have happened if Bell would have been out in front at the time of caution. But on the next restart, you will see. But this does mean we will be heading into overtime. One of the few overtime races of this season, actually, where Bubba Wallace would be leading from the outside, from the inside. Christopher Bell on the outside. Bubba Wallace was able to take the lead or edge out in front off turn 2, but Bell would fight back. Chase Briscoe nearly made contact with Bubba off of turn 2. Chase Briscoe would end up fading a little bit after that contact, fell down to 5th, while Bell and Bubba continued to battle off turn 2, and they were coming to take the white flag when the caution came out once again. This time, it was for Zane Smith, who was basically doing a different version of Ross Chastain's wall ride from 2022 Martinsville. He was literally up on the side of the wall, on the side of his car, and it was just an insane scene to watch as Zane Smith came back down off the banking, down the banking, kind of flipping, violent flipping. Nothing like Ryan Priest's flip, when Zane Smith would climb out of the car all right, and he also had some contact with John Hunter Nemechek heading into turn 3. Nemechek just kind of washed up into Zane Smith, put Zane Smith in the wall, and somehow popped Zane Smith up on his side while Nemechek went back down the track, clipped Ty Gibbs in the 54 car, and as well he clipped Josh Berry. I believe who else was also involved in that? I'm looking at my notes here. I guess it was just Zane Smith, John Hunter Nemechek, Josh Berry, and Ty Gibbs all involved in that crash. It was a big, scary crash for Zane Smith, who ended up flipping back down down the banking. He did climb out of that car all right. Gibbs, Berry, Nemechek all climbed out of their cars all right. So thankfully, they all seemed all right. Zane Smith was checked and released from the Infield Care Center. I don't think he was transported to a hospital. He looked fine. So I think Zane Smith will be all good. So really good to see Zane Smith climbing out of that car unscathed, relatively, I guess. That would bring out a 8-minute red flag while they cleaned up Zane Smith's car and all the other cars that were wrecked from that incident. But then we would get ready for our second overtime restart after everything got cleaned up. Bubba Wallace would lead from the inside, Bell on the outside. Bubba Wallace would edge ahead off into turn 1. Bell would surge back on the outside, and they would make contact off turn 4, and that on coming to the white flag, I should say. And Christopher Bell ended up losing a bunch of spots, falling back down to 5th, while Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, they all got back into this race. Chase Elliott, on those 4 fresh tires, relatively fresh tires, was able to duck, make it 3 wide, ended up getting up into 4th. This was just a crazy turn 1, heading into turn 1. It was a crazy scene. You had Elliott diving to the inside, splitting the middle between them, Hamlin and Wallace. Wallace, obviously, Denny's driver. Denny owns that car. It was just an insane scene to watch heading down into the backstretch. But down the backstretch, you would have Hamlin pushing Wallace out to a little bit of a lead. Chase Elliott actually moved up to 3rd, side by side with Chase Briscoe, as Bell fell back down to 5th place. And then you would have into turn 3 and 4, Hamlin ducked under the inside of Wallace, but the power steering issues would bite Denny Hamlin here. Hamlin not able to hold the bottom, washed up into Bubba Wallace, both up into the wall. Wallace really more into the wall than Hamlin, but that allowed Chase Elliott and Chase Briscoe to enter back into the conversation. Elliott on the bottom got under Hamlin, and coming off of turn 4, Hamlin turned down hard into Chase Elliott. Big door slam by Denny Hamlin. But through all that, Chase Elliott would end up crossing the finish line first, followed by Denny Hamlin, right before they almost ran into the rear of Ty Gibbs, who was really, really slow after he had that damage. But it was a big win for Chase Elliott. Huge final lap pass, final corner pass. That's what I meant. This race had a thrilling finish, lots of carnage, lots of great racing, especially into turns 3 and 4. Exciting finish overall. Chase Elliott once again getting the victory. Bubba would have to end up settling for a 5th place finish, while Bell and Briscoe got 3rd and 4th respectively, while Elliott and Hamlin took the first 2 spots. So with that being said, I think it's time to look at the top finishers. Kyle Larson got a 6th place finish. Had some good speed early in the race, but never really could do anything with it. Got some stage points as well. Only led 1 lap. So Larson, back-to-back weeks, I think he's had pretty good speed, but here today was not really able to do a lot with it. I thought this was going to be a track where Larson could possibly get back on track, be a contender for a win. And early, it looked like he could be, but ended up fading a little bit towards the end. Tyler Reddick ends up in 7th. Big rebound after last week at New Hampshire after having a rough week last week. So Tyler Reddick Didn't have the best pit stops in stage one, ended up falling back outside the top 20, but was able to work his way forward, used a tiny bit of pit strategy, but that car also had a really good amount of speed as well. So Reddick in seventh. Brad Keselowski in eighth. Good day for Brad Keselowski. Kind of flew under the radar all day long, but a really good result for that number 6 RFK driver. William Byron and Shane Van Gisbergen in ninth and 10th. How about that? William Byron, again, ill-handling car, was not really able to move forward. Used a little bit of pit strategy, got himself up inside the top 5, able to hold on to a ninth place finish. And Shane Van Gisbergen ended up having to make that pass through on lap 1, still able to really work his way forward throughout the entire day. Was running up inside the top 15 most of the day, ends up finishing in 10th. Really good result for Shane Van Gisbergen. His teammate Ross Chastain in 11th as well. Chastain was running up inside the top 10 most of the day, kind of faded towards the end, but still a really good result. And then you got a bunch of just gaggle of who are you guys here from 12th to 15th. You got Todd Gilliland in 12th. Where did he come from? I really don't know. Ty Dillon in 13th. Michael McDowell in 14th. Again, after making that pass-through penalty, ends up in 14th. And Chris Buescher in 15th after qualifying in 15th. Buescher, I think, had a really good car, possibly a top 10 car as well. And some other guys, Kyle Busch in 19th. I think Busch actually had some pretty solid speed in that car. Just kind of got unlucky with those wrecks, but can't run really well if you're back in the pack all day and just get caught up on those wrecks, I guess. So Kyle Busch in 19th. I already mentioned Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric all finishing outside the top 20. Did not need that. Hosvar as well had some really good speed. I think Alex Bowman as well had some solid speed. They both finished in 29th and 28th, respectively. Zane Smith, Nemechek, 31st and 32nd. A lot of good cars did finish toward the back, mostly due to DNFs. Pretty sure that everybody from Logano, actually, I think it's Gregson on back had some issues. Like Gregson got involved in that wreck. Blaney got involved in that wreck as well. Gibbs got involved in another wreck. I think Gregson was able to continue though. Riley Herbst, Joey Logano, Cole Custer. So a lot of guys did finish off the lead lap, I presume, and I believe because of all the wrecks and some of the DNFs that they all had. But there's a look at your top finishers for today's Hollywood Casino 400 from Kansas Speedway. But now let's go ahead and take a look at the updated playoff standings heading into the Charlotte Roval next weekend. Chase Elliott, with his win now, is locked into the round of 8. I thought that Chase Elliott might be out after this round, but that prediction is not looking good. He joins Ryan Blaney in the win column for this round. Kyle Larson, now 54 points above the cut line. He's got a pretty good margin. He won there last year at the Roval, so I wouldn't sweat it if you're Larson. Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, 48 and 44 points above the cut line, respectively. Bell, very good road course racer. Hamlin, I'm a little concerned about, but with that 48 points cushion, I think Hamlin should be just fine. William Byron as well, 40 points above the cut line. That's where winning that regular season championship really comes into play here in these late rounds. After having some mediocre finishes, Byron still has a pretty comfortable gap, and Byron is a very good road course racer, so Byron right now I think has a pretty good chance of making it through. Now we get to the last two drivers in that I believe are in a little bit of danger. Chase Briscoe, 21 points above the cut line, has a solid cushion, but nothing is really safe in the round of 12 heading into the round of 8. And Joey Logano now moves up into the last driver's spot in 13 points above the cut line. And the first driver out is Ross Chastain, out by 13, followed by Bubba Wallace by 26, Reddick by 29, and Cindric out by 48. Cindric might have to win his way in at the Charlotte Roval, which is going to be very tough to do because Cindric, he's been good at road courses, but I don't know how good at road courses he can be. Is he going to win at road courses? I don't know. And same for Bubba and Tyre. I know Reddick is pretty good at road courses. Bubba, not so sure. And they really needed to have a good race here at Kansas, and they did. It's just not enough of a dent to really get themselves into the round of 8. So they are going to have to really be very aggressive at the Charlotte Roval if they want to make it in. And same for Chastain. Chastain, though, has a little bit more of a manageable gap, 13 points. We'll see how Chastain can do at the Charlotte Roval next week. Another thing I really want to highlight here before I get to my race review rating to end off today's race, I think if Toyota can be this dominant at Kansas, I'm very interested to see what they can do at Las Vegas in a couple weeks, because Las Vegas and Kansas, very similar style tracks, surface a little bit different, but I think Las Vegas is a little bit more worn than Kansas is. But if Kansas and Toyotas can run like this at Kansas, I am very interested to see what they can do at Las Vegas. I mean, Tyler Reddick almost won a Las Vegas race, but lost out to Kyle Larson a couple years. I think it was last season in the the spring race. So Toyota can be good there. It's just what can they do with it? And Toyota finally might be starting to catch Penske. And on the short tracks, I'm going to have to wait and see, especially for Martinsville, how Toyota can do at the short tracks. And same for Hendrick, because Hendrick is going to be the team I'm going to watch out for at Martinsville, because they've been very good at Martinsville. But going forward, we're going to have to keep an eye on Toyota heading into Las Vegas in a couple weeks, because after this dominant performance at uh, Kansas, heading into Las Vegas, this is going to be a lot of optimism for this team and Toyota overall in general. But now it's time to move on to my race review, rating, recap, whatever you want to call it, the triple R, as I like to call it. So this race was very, very good on all levels. You had some spectacle with all the crashes, that flip at the end from Zane Smith. The racing, it's going to be always really, really good at Kansas. Just safe to say that whenever you're going to come to Kansas or Las Vegas, the racing is going to be just so good all the time because of how good the next gen car is on the mile and a half. Great side by side racing, great battles throughout the whole track. That new right side tire that Goodyear brought definitely limited the amount of mechanical failures. The real mechanical issues, I would say, were Denny Hamlin's power steering, and that was really the only one. And Hamlin's had some issues at Kansas mechanically over the last couple seasons. But besides that, the right side tire that Goodyear brought definitely held up a little bit better, and the racing was still very, very good. You saw multiple lines being used. Overall, really, really good, and glad to see Zane Smith getting out of that car unscathed once again. So for this race, the Hollywood Casino 400, I'm going to give this race a 97%. I think this was an A-plus race. This was an A-plus race on all levels. Great racing, great atmosphere. Looked like a great crowd at Kansas Speedway. The weather was beautiful. Like I heard it was 85 degrees down in Kansas. That sounds like just beautiful, beautiful weather. I would love to be there. In Wisconsin, we're getting some good weather too, so I can't really complain as well. But 97% on the race review rating for me for the Hollywood Casino 400. So let me know down in the comments what you thought of today's race from Kansas. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you missed it, I also released another episode earlier today. Just a couple news stories that I wanted to talk about before Kansas. So go check that one out if you missed it. Make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're listening on YouTube. And go check out Talking Sports with Miles and Andrew. And if you're listening on any other podcast platforms, please consider giving the show and Talking Sports a follow as well, so you never miss another upload or another episode on either show. So hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I'm Andrew Volkman, and I will see you in the next episode. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. I'll see you very, very soon.